Hello, this is Deanna. I am Deanna, and I just wanted to say hi. I thought I would talk for a few minutes about regaining spiritual empowerment when life is hard, because sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need to get like a little boost, okay, of that spiritual good stuff. It can be really easy to feel spiritually empowered when life is easy, but when it's hard, when there's a lot of negativity going around, it can be really hard to keep walking our walk, right? We want to say we're spiritual, but we want to actually we want to be that spiritual person. And so to me, spiritual empowerment is about seeing life from that spiritual, metaphysical, transcendent perspective, and having a goal of being more highly conscious. And so that's what it means to me. And if that's what it means to you too, I hope maybe I have something that will be of some help. But, if our goal is to become more highly conscious, that also means we have to take more responsibility. And taking more responsibility is a lot of work. My son's like sneaking past me right now. Hi, baby. Being more highly conscious also means more accountability, because we are taking responsibility for our lives and how we see the world. But again, that can be altered and become very difficult for us when there's a lot of negativity around us, okay? So if your goal is to also be to live life in a more spiritual, metaphysical, transcendent way and to become more highly conscious, maybe you'll join me on this together, and we can, kind of share things. If you want to share something that works for you, please leave it in the comments. So when you walk a metaphysical, transcendent, spiritual path, there's kind of a guideline that goes with that will, it's like the most important big truth out there, big truth with the capital T, like my friend Mark likes to say. But the big thing that we have to do to be spiritually empowered is to be able to see God as an everywhere present force. Whatever you want to call this, if you want to call it God, the universe, source energy, the force, great spirit, mother, father, God, you have a name for it, whatever you call it. We have to be able to see this source as unlimited, and also to recognize that it is everywhere present, which means everything in the manifest world comes from this source. Everything that has yet to be, everything in the realm of the unseen, comes from this source. So it is everything that has been created, and it is everything that is yet to be created. All right, so it's all the brilliant ideas that are already made manifest, but it's already all the brilliant ideas, that have yet to be. Okay, so that's what this source energy is. It is this everywhere present force that is unlimited. So that naturally leads us to the next part of this, which is, if source energy is everywhere present, and it's what makes everything, both seen and unseen, then that means we must also be an emanation of this unlimited force. Okay, so you, I, we are all an emanation of this force, and this force works through us, okay, because it's everywhere present. But then this also means that this force is also in everybody else. Okay, so everyone else must also be an emanation of this force, no matter their behavior. Okay, that's the big thing right there. Source energy, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, it didn't just make good people, okay? And all the bad people came from someplace else. That's not how this works. Every person is an emanation of source energy, because this is a very impersonal force. It just seeks to work through everything. Okay, now, because we all have free will, there are people who will use this force to create out of love and honor their divine nature. But there will also be people who make choices and that will waste and desecrate this energy. All right, they fail to honor their divine nature. Okay, so that's what being a metaphysical spiritual person means, is that on my page, I will say, okay, my definition, is that we constantly are realigning ourselves with that understanding that everything comes from source energy. And there's nothing that didn't come from that. All right. So now, if everything comes from source energy, and you are an emanation of this source energy, and I am an emanation, and everybody else is an emanation, this also means that everything that exists is also a potential channel for source energy to work through, no matter how that channel may appear. All right? Source can work through something as simple and delicate as, let's say, a little bird, okay? Maybe you see a bird and you get a message from it, right? There is no place that source cannot work through. Now, source is also present in every event, every situation, and every person. Okay, no matter how we view that event, situation, or person. Okay, this is a really important part of this, right? To see God as everywhere present. If we still are judging something as bad, what happens is we're limiting our experience of God. If we're judging something as bad, we limit how we're going to experience God working through that. Which means, really, we just created a limited God in our mind, right? If we say, oh, that was a coincidence, or that is a bad thing, or God couldn't work through there. Well, God can't work through something. That would mean God is limited. But you know what? God is unlimited, all right? So God can work through anything, all right? Now, I'm going to get to a point, actually, with this. Now, this is what someone does when they walk a path of the spiritual, metaphysical, transcendent, who wants to expand their consciousness. Okay, they are constantly realigning themselves with the divine and with their divine nature, so that they are always seeing God as an everywhere present force, and that each person is also an emanation of this force, and that even all situations, places, events, things, animals, plants, everything is an emanation of this God consciousness. Now, what happens when somebody says that they're spiritual, but they're not able to embody this awareness? And embodying this awareness takes a lot of practice, because it takes a lot of redirecting their thoughts, okay? To constantly remind ourselves that God is everywhere present, even in people we don't like, right? To keep reminding ourselves, okay, God made that person, and that person's an emanation of God. It takes a lot of practice. So when somebody says they're spiritual, but they're not embodying this awareness, they're going to experience suffering because they want things to be different, okay? Now, I know for myself, even though I've been very involved in metaphysics and New Age and New Thought for a long time, I went for a long periods of time, several different times, when I was failing to acknowledge my own divine nature. And so it put me into a space of limitation because I was seeing God as limited. Because if we're failing to acknowledge our own divine nature, right there we limit God. Now, there are actually things that we can do to experience limitation. All right, there are things that people do that will make their experience of limitation worse. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple of these and then talk about what we can do to not experience that limitation. Okay, one of the first things that people can do, and this is a real easy one to just jump into, is to judge, right? To be judgmental. When we are judging something, what we're saying is that it's wrong and we know better. And that's actually kind of arrogant, right? To decide that we know better. Now, there is something that we need to do, which is sometimes we think it's judgment, but it's actually the kinder version, which is observing and having discernment. So the difference between judgment and observing or having discernment is this. Say that it's cold outside. You step outside and it's cold. And you decide, wow, this feels really cold. You've just made an observation and you decide to go get your coat and put your coat on and then you leave. That works better for you. Say you go to your friend's house and you're like, hey, let's go, but it's really cold. You want to get your coat. So your friend steps outside with you, but says, oh, this isn't that cold. In fact, this feels really nice. I don't need a coat. they've made an observation too. Now, if you just let them have their observation, then everything is fine. But what happens if you decide only an idiot would go out in that kind of weather without a coat, and you decide to tell your friend that, right? Well, that's judgmental. And it doesn't feel very good, does it? Now, when we judge, there's actually a lot of controlling going on. When we get into a real judgmental space, we feel like we have to tell everybody what to do. And we have to set them straight, okay? Because they're not doing it our way. Let's see. I see a comment here from you, Michelle. Source energy allows free will because of an unlimited and non-judgmental love. Yes. Judgment comes from our limitations as humans. Yes. Oh, I just answered your question. That's great. Okay, yes. So judgmental, when we become judgmental, we've decided that our way is the right way, and it has to be a certain way or else it's wrong. All right, so all of our friends have to put their coats on or it's wrong. Life is wrong if they don't all have their coats on. What happens when we judge, because when we're judging, we're getting into this mode where we've decided that we know best, and this automatically cuts us off from that flow of source energy. So what happens is that we are actually limiting our inner resourcefulness. And that's why sometimes being judgmental also includes some manipulation, right? Trying to convince people that we're right and other people are wrong. Okay, so we eliminate judging when we go back to that first step there, recognizing that source energy is everywhere present source. And it's everywhere. It is within everything. That means that our friend who maybe thinks it's not cold, she has inside of her the same forces that put the galaxies into their spin. So if she really does get too cold, she'll think to put a coat on, right? And so that is how we help ourselves when it comes to being judgmental. We just constantly remind ourselves, God is at work in everybody else, so we'll get this figured out. They'll be able to handle it. We handle our own stuff, okay? Now, the next thing that really, really cuts us off from source energy is complaining. And I have people, every year I do this thing called the Complaint Free Challenge, where I wear a bracelet and I commit to go 21 days without complaining. And I will always have somebody want to argue with me and say, well, if you're not complaining, you won't get anything fixed, right? How do you fix something if you don't complain about it? Well, actually, a chronic complainer is already completely disempowered. So people complain, and they've actually will get to a place where they think that complaining is all they have because they can't actually make any changes. Complaining implies that they will see something that's wrong, but that they're not going to do anything about it. And it can also be sort of passive-aggressive, that they complain really loud, hoping this other person will hear, and that maybe they will take care of it. Okay, people think so complaining is not how we get things done. Problem solving is how we get things done. We get things fixed by making an observation and then determining what needs to be done, okay? If we can do something about it, we do something about it. If we can't do anything about it, we have to determine then what we need to do for ourselves to handle the situation. For example, summer is coming here in Southern California. I'm not a fan of the heat. It can get up to 105, 110, and I don't even live in the hottest part of Southern California, all right? But I'm just not a fan of the heat. Now, it used to be that I'd complain about summertime, and I would start complaining about summer in like mid-spring, because I'd be thinking about what's to come, right? But we can't do anything about the weather, right? You just can't. So I remember years ago when my kids were little, in the summertime, it got really hot, and all we had was a swamp cooler, which works like, 95% of the time here in Southern California. But this was that one time that wasn't going to work too well. So what my kids and I did was we went outside, got in the pool, and then came back inside. And then we go outside and get in the pool, and then come back inside. And we just kept doing that. And, when I look back over my summer times with my kids, my family, I just have good memories. I don't think about, oh my God, that was like the hottest summer ever. I don't ever think about that. I had to learn to handle the situation. So I actually find a lot of things to love about summertime. Like there's tons of fresh fruit, right? All this delicious fruit we don't, have year round. I love that we go to the movies more often during the summertime because, movie theaters are freakishly cold, and it's kind of fun to go in there with your sweater in the middle of summer. And I seem to read more books in the summertime. So there are things I find to like about summer because really I want to love summer. I want to love all the seasons. So we have to take responsibility for our own experiences. Complaining is not going to help us accomplish anything or solve anything. Complaining takes away our problem-solving skills. It takes away our inner resourcefulness. Now, sometimes, again, there may be something in our lives that we can't change. Now, we may have to learn to deal with the situation. It doesn't mean we have to be okay with the situation, but it might be that we need to get through it. There are a lot of people right now, half the country probably, is thinking about how to get through 4 years, right? When we have all of our political parties are so at odds with each other. So there's not a whole lot we can do, but we can try to make our time together more comfortable, right? And maybe be a little kinder and loving. So when we look at a situation that we might want to complain about, we want to ask ourselves, can I take a conscious, deliberate action right now to fix it? Or is it something I can't fix? Well, then can I take a conscious and deliberate action that will help me live with it right now? All right. Now, when we do this, what happens is that we're basically surrendering, right? And so when we surrender, we are again reminding ourselves, okay, what it is that works through us, for us, as us, that we are a divine being in a body. And that will, when we are realigning ourselves with our divine center again, we become more resourceful, right? Which means we are better able to handle situations. That's what we really want. We want that inner resourcefulness. Now, the third thing that people do sometimes, and I used to do this until I really, made myself think about it, but people tend to think that love and peace are passive. Hold on. How do we defer judgments against us when someone introduces advice that is really judgmental and might do so in a crowd? Oh, yeah, that kind of sucks when that happens. And also prefaces this type of action as one of their, love and concern. I love that, right? I love you, so I'm going to tell you it's 42 degrees outside and you really should wear a coat. You know what? It is hard. It is hard to make other people do what we want them to do for us. And so this is where being assertive might come in. We have to set boundaries. If somebody offers us a judgment, if they're judging us and trying to tell us what to do, what we just might have to do in the moment is say, well, thank you for your concern. Okay? Here, let me see if I can look at you on Facebook better, actually. Sorry. I just want to be able to read the whole comment, that's all. Okay. Love and okay, I guess I did see the whole comment. Yeah, when people are being judgmental to us, we might just have to say, thank you for your concern. I'll take that under advisement. I'll think about it. Oh, you gave me something to think of. Thank you. Because you know what, quite honestly, sometimes people, they're not going to hear us. They are going to be stuck in their own judgments. And so when that happens, we want to remember again that they are also an emanation of source energy, because the tough part here for us would be to judge them back. Okay, to see them as that annoying person. And this I know this is something that bothers me. I don't like feeling like somebody is annoying me. I don't like feeling critical of another person because of how they treat me. And so I will just try to set a boundary with them, and just to remember to keep seeing the light in them, and also understand that they may not be able to understand where I'm coming from. They may not be able to have empathy with what I'm going through. Michelle, I hope that answered your question. Okay. Okay, so peace and love, and maybe talking about peace and love will even help, because a lot of people think that peace and love are passive, and that to have peace and love when you're in a really difficult situation, it's like, well, how are you even solving a problem, right? How are you fixing things? How are you making life better? Okay, gotcha. I was in a metaphysical discussion not too long ago that digressed into politics, and somebody said, I am so tired of hearing about love, 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 just to send the situation love and light, send it love and light. But that's really not what it means to come from peace and love, right? In fact, that's doing the least amount possible to do anything, right? Is to just say, I'll send light and love, okay? Which, I mean, it's a good thing, because sometimes you can't do anything else but send light and love to something. But when we decide to come from a loving space, a peaceful space, what we are doing is, once again, we are realigning ourselves with that source that created us and put us here in the first place. And that, again, takes a lot of work. Now, we realign ourselves with source energy. We remind ourselves we are an emanation of source energy. We become better problem solvers. We become more solution oriented. And actually, love and peace can be a lot of effort on our part. It's not like the easy passive way to get out of doing something. When we start coming from a space of love and peace, we start having to take right action. And we might actually be called to step up and do something bigger than what we hoped we would have to do. We might hope we can just do something small and to make life better, but we may actually be called to step up into something big that takes us way out of our comfort zone. And I think about people like Martin Luther King Jr., or Gandhi. These people came from a space of love and peace, but they were very action-oriented, right? So love and peace are one of our superpowers, and we should treat it as such. They're not passive things so that we just wait to hand out when life is good. Love and peace are superpowers that help us to stay in alignment with that force, but also to take that right action and step forward to do the right thing. Okay, so how do we re-empower ourselves then, right? If we feel we're in the midst of this negativity and we're feeling the heaviness and the weight of the things that are going on in the world. For myself, what I had to do was I had to come to terms with the idea that the spiritual path is not a past time. It is a path that we have to actually walk on all the time. When I was first on my spiritual path, I was really happy for a while because it was a lot of fun. But then life got hard, and I got to the point where I wasn't happy with my spiritual path. And I actually thought, this isn't working for me. But what I had to learn was that it wasn't that my spiritual path was not working for me. I was not working my spiritual path, right? We have to work this all the time. We have to constantly realign ourselves with source energy. You know, I heard this term a long time ago called a little bit of poison, all right? And this is how a little bit of poison works. I remember years ago I had this client and I'd see her every week. And one day she was due to come in to see me, and I was in such a great mood. And I was in a fabulous mood, right? And she comes over here and we have a session together, and then this is back when I did massage therapy. And then she starts in, okay? Yeah, you know, eggs are so expensive now. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. I don't know how much eggs are. But then she's like, oh man, and what's going on right now in the government? And this was years ago, okay, not currently. And then everything, she just kept saying one negative thing after another. In my really high mood where I was so happy, it just started going like this. Okay, just a little bit of poison. And that is what we're dealing with. And see, when that happened to me, again, I was in a fabulous mood. Okay, so we have to constantly re-empower ourselves, constantly realign with source energy, constantly remind ourselves that we are a divine being in a body. Because when we start feeling cut off from source, that's when our experiences of lack and limitation are going to be triggered. And that is when we're more likely to get into feeling judgmental. That is going to be when we are more likely to feel so disempowered that all we can do is complain and not really make any changes. Right? Realigning with source energy. That is the key right there, to remind yourself. I am an emanation of source energy. I was created with intention and purpose. Right? There's some crazy shit going on in the world right now. And for us to have a positive impact, for us to be a force for good, we always have to remember who we are and where we come from. I want you to remember this. You are an emanation of divine source energy. You have no idea of the forces or the events that had to be orchestrated to get you where you are right here and right now. You are divine design with a purpose. Okay, you were made manifest with intention and purpose. And many synchronicities, many years before you were ever conceived, had to be in place, right? Many things had to be in place for you to be here right now. You are designed to make this world a brighter, kinder, and more loving place. Now, it may take a lot of effort. I can promise you that. It will actually take a lot of effort. But when you are in alignment with that force that created you, it takes care of how all that is going to happen. Right? When you're in alignment with that, it will give you the guidance. And you just have to follow that inner guidance and actually take action, and just take action one step at a time. You don't have to know the how. You just have to know what, right? What you want to accomplish, right? So for myself, I just decided I'm going to be fully committed to this process. And when I'm feeling the weight of the world upon me, I go back to step one, right? I am an emanation of that divine source energy. I was created with a divine purpose in mind. And I want you just to say that with me, okay? I am an emanation of divine source energy. I was created with intention and purpose. So I am committed, and I invite you to try this with me too, okay? So that's it for today. I want to thank you so much for showing up on this with me. That was really nice of you. And I guess I will say see you later for now, okay? I love you guys. Bye.